I am Reed, just a normal 27-year-old guy talking about building wealth and getting your life together in your 20s. So, inflation just did a little jump, right? It hit 4.2%, which is the highest we've seen in 3 years since April of 2023, actually. And this news comes just days before the Federal Reserve has their big meeting about interest rates. What they were going to do with them, honestly, just a few months ago, a lot of us, including me, thought the Fed was going to lower the Fed funds rate, make things a little easier, but, the conversation has really changed now. Because if inflation keeps climbing like this, interest rates might stay higher for longer, much longer than most of us anticipated. So what I want to do is let us take a look at what that latest inflation report told us last week. And really, what does it mean for our money, for you and for me? Let us start with the numbers, the Consumer Price Index, what we call the CPI or headline CPI. It went up by 0.5% in May. Now, that might not sound like a huge jump for just 1 month, but over the last 12 months, the headline CPI inflation is now running at 4.2%. And that is the number that a lot of folks, are watching very, very closely. But the headline number, headline CPI, it only tells part of the story. The number that a lot of economists, including the Fed itself, pays even closer attention to is core CPI. Now, core CPI inflation, it takes out food and energy from the equation because those categories, food and energy, they tend to swing wildly. They super volatile, just like we're seeing right now with energy prices. Core CPI inflation increased by 0.2% in May and is up over 2.9% year over year, and that is still above the Fed's long-term inflation target of 2%, which they've been talking about for the last 4 years. In other words, even when we take out the food and energy, inflation is still higher than they want, and it is still going up. Now, I want to circle back a bit because, I don't want to just throw food and energy away like they not important. They are so important. Because food and energy and oil and transportation, all those things really matter to our everyday living, right? Our pocketbooks and our wallets, they rely so heavily on food and energy and how much they cost, But here's the real kicker, something to really keep in mind. Energy prices alone in the past 12 months are up over 23%. Think about that for a moment. A 23% increase, according to most reports, now accounts for about 60% of the overall increase in inflation just during the last month. So energy is a main reason that we're seeing inflation rising so rapidly. And of course, we know that food prices, they just keep climbing, right? We see that every single day when we go to the grocery store. The food index is up 0.2% last month in May and is up 1% year over year. And look, like I said, most families, most people, we don't really need a government report to tell us that food has gotten more expensive, right? When you look at what you put in your cart at the grocery store and what is in there now that costs $50 used to cost $25 just a few years ago, we get it, we can feel it, and we can see it every time we go to the grocery store. Another big piece of this whole puzzle is housing. Let us not forget about housing. Housing remains stubbornly high as well, what they call the shelter increase that measures the increase in housing. It was up 0.3% last month and is up 4% year over year. And for many families, housing is the most costly monthly expense that people have to pay for. So when the cost of shelter increases, that really puts pressure on everybody's wallet. Now, here's why the stock market cares about this and why this is important for all of us. The inflation report that we just got last week, it doesn't just affect groceries or gas for your car. It also affects interest rates on loans, it affects the cost of stocks, it affects bond yields in the broader economy, and this is why this stuff is so important to us. This stuff has a ripple effect on our overall money. For most of the past year or so, most investors, me included, we've been thinking, the Fed funds rate is going to come down, the Fed is going to lower the interest rates and make money cheaper to borrow, right? Because lower interest rates usually help people or incentivize people to go out and borrow money, and that also has a ripple effect on housing, oftentimes, right? Mortgage rates tend to kind of follow suit. We know the mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year treasury, but they tend to follow suit as we see interest rates come down, typically, right? And also the value of stocks are affected too. But here is the deal, we haven't seen this in a few years. When inflation starts moving higher and higher, it really changes the whole conversation from what we were just thinking. Just a few months ago, because now we have inflation going the opposite direction, going up. And that means that the Fed has a whole lot less flexibility in terms of lowering the rates. Because when the Fed makes money cheaper to borrow, people go out and spend money, and spending money is sort of inflationary. Because when people start spending money, demand goes up, and when demand goes up, prices go up even higher, but now we have high inflation, and that means the Fed may not be able to cut rates like we all thought, right? And that is why these inflation reports garner so much attention from investors and consumers and all of us. So let's continue with the Fed. Now again, the Fed's target for core CPI has been 2% for years, not 4%, not 5%, not 3%. They wanted it 2%. Listen, it never really got to 2%, right? It got down to, I think, about 6% or 25%, and then it started going back up a few months ago. Now, the core CPI is up to 29%, and you've got that headline CPI with food and energy at 4.2%. So it is going the opposite direction, and that creates a challenge for the Fed. No longer can they come in, like I said, and lower the rates because, again, higher inflation means that the Fed wants to slow down spending, slow down people from going out and getting loans a little bit when inflation is going up like it is right now. And what does the Fed usually do to slow down spending? The Fed typically raises interest rates to slow down the spending, making money more expensive to actually borrow. When they make the money more expensive to borrow, less spending takes place. And that is what usually drives inflation down. And that is why you have a few people right now who are saying, look, the Fed may ultimately in the next few months, maybe even with their next meeting coming up, raise the Fed funds rate. Now, the general consensus overall right now, with just a few days to go before the next Fed meeting, is that the Fed is going to keep the federal funds rate right where it is, between 3.5% and 3.75%, and not touch it. But I am telling you that if we keep seeing these inflation reports that say that inflation keeps going up and up and up, guess what? The Fed is going to have to come in and actually raise the Fed funds rate. The Fed is going to meet again in just a few days. And this FOMC, Federal Open Market Committee meeting, is going to be very interesting because it is going to be the first meeting for the new Fed chair, Kevin Walsh. And at the same time, you are going to have Jerome Powell there, who was the previous Fed chair. He's going to be sitting right there on the FOMC as well. So that is going to create some unique dynamics, right? In terms of leadership, things that we haven't seen in decades, right? We haven't had a Fed chair that stayed on the FOMC since the 1940s or 50s. It has been a long time since that has happened. So we might see a little friction in terms of what the Fed does at this next meeting. We LLC. But again, the bigger issue is not necessarily what the Fed does. The bigger issue is if inflation continues to go up, what it is going to do to our wallets. So let me talk a little bit about what this means for us as consumers and as investors, because that is really the bottom line for us. What it means is borrowing money is probably going to stay more expensive for longer than we all had assumed. Credit card rates are going to stay high. Car loan rates are also going to stay high as well. And mortgage rates, although they were not specifically tied directly to the Fed funds rate, expect those mortgage rates to stay higher for longer as well. Now, at the same time, let us talk about the flip side when the Fed funds rate stays higher for longer. What that means is if you are a saver, you may benefit from a higher Fed funds rate for longer. Why? Because it means the rate on your high yield savings account is going to remain higher for longer. It means the rates that you are getting on CDs and money market accounts, those rates that you are receiving are going to stay higher for longer as well. But again, I don't want you to focus on what the Fed might do. We don't know what the Fed is going to do, and guess what? We don't control the Fed, we don't control inflation, and you can control energy prices and what is going on with oil and gas over in the Middle East, right? We can control any of that. We don't know. But what we can control is our financial habits. We can control our spending. We can control getting out of our bad debt. If you owe any bad debt, these are things that you can control. Look, you can also control whether you are consistently investing for your future through simply dollar cost averaging and continuing to invest no matter what is going on around you. Not panicking, but just keep going. Now, the next inflation report is going to be released on the 14th of July in just about 3 weeks or so. And at that time, we're going to find out whether inflation continues moving higher or whether this just turns out to be a temporary bump in the road, with inflation bumping up and then coming back down. We LL have to see. Keep your ears tuned to this channel. I am going to break this thing down for you in plain language on a weekly basis so we all can know what moves and things we should be doing with our money right now based on what is happening in the broader economy with inflation, with the Fed funds rate, with GDP, and some of these larger, broader issues. So let me hear from you. Do you think that the Federal Reserve should raise interest rates again to sort of slow down the spending and keep inflation in check if possible? Or do you think the Fed should go ahead and just keep the interest rates exactly where they are right now and just wait and see? Drop a comment below for me and let me know what you think. And if you got value from this video, do me a favor and please share it with someone who you think needs to hear it. And before you go, enrollment for my 4-step financial reset is open right now. If you are tired of feeling financially scattered and all over the place, and you want a clear system for managing your money to grow your money, eliminate some debt, build some more cash reserves, and understand investing at a deeper level, I'd love to work with you in the 4-step financial reset. The program includes the complete 4 steps to maximize your money course, 3 small group live coaching sessions with me, worksheets, tools, and support. You can learn more about the 4-step financial reset in the link below in the description box. Remember, the best person who is going to take care of the old you is the young you. Until the next video.